Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk Arsenal. It's your host Dushyant Gupta, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to our podcast, Arsenal Women's Podcast. It has been a long time since we last talked about the Arsenal women players and Arsenal women's team. I think it's been 2 weeks since we last interacted. Me and Ria both have been doing not so well, mentally, physically, and all that stuff that normally human being goes through. But enough of that, and it's glad to be back and discuss. The Arsenal women's football and what's been going coming around. For the past week, it has been the international break going on currently in the Arsenal women's football, and all the Arsenal women players are currently playing for their women's sides. I guess most of the players apparently, and we will be talking about what the women what they are up to, and specifically we will be talking about one player that you know played and scored a hat trick for her national team, and she did it in I think it was 15 minutes or so. Maybe Ria can correct me if I'm wrong. But hey, Ria, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long time, I guess, since you have been here. So welcome back to the channel.
Hi Dushyant, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been quite a long time and a lot has happened since then and yeah, can't wait to talk about it all.
Yeah. You can find Ria at Ria Rai Chaudhary, and you can find me, Dushyant, at Dushyant AFC. Both are on Twitter, so you guys can go and find us and follow us there. But yeah, enough of that, social media thing. But today we are here to talk about Arsenal women football and the upcoming games. I think the next game is FA Cup against Brighton, if I am not wrong. Is
Y-
that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. We have the FA Cup semi-final against Brighton on the 31st.
That will be a tough match because I think Brighton is a good enough team in the WSL as well. But I'm hoping and I think that Arsenal will be quite easily be able to beat them and go through the finals. Hopefully, that's what happens. But let's see what players we will play at the end of the podcast. But before we talk about that stuff, we start as I discussed started off the podcast was the one player that scored a hat trick in the international week. Let's talk about her, Beth Mead. She has been really fantastic in this since the new season has started. What do you make about her, Beth Mead, especially, and her 15-minute hat trick, was it? uh,
Yeah, she scored a hat trick in 15 minutes. So she also created history because she's the first English female player to have scored a hat trick at Wembley. So, you know, Arsenal women's players casually breaking records wherever they go. So that's great. But yeah, she came. So she didn't start the game, which was quite disappointing for most of the Arsenal fans because she is honestly right now she's in at the top of her form. She's playing the best football she's ever played, and we watch that week in week out in the WSL. She's just so essential to the Arsenal women's team. So it was a little disappointing to not see her start, but then obviously she came off the bench and she changed the game. England weren't doing the best, and yeah, Beth Mead came on and changed the course of events, scored a hat trick in 15 minutes, and won pretty much won the game for her national team. So
and she also got the player of the match at the end of the game. And that was
yeah,
even more fantastic because she came after and scored a 50-minute hat trick, and she was like, I'm done here, my thing is done, I've scored 3 goals. And even the Arsenal legend himself, Ian Wright, was captured and seen celebrating and calling Beth Mead's name. So that kind of a recognition from one of the most famous Arsenal legend and great goal scorer for England and Arsenal as well is absolutely fantastic for someone like Beth Mead. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And she really deserves it. Like, obviously, this year when the Olympics happened, she didn't get picked up for Team GB, which was a big blow. And I think all of us were a little stunned by that decision from the interim manager at the time. But I think, like, yeah, we did criticize her not being selected at the time, and we did sort of have a heartbreaking moment. But I think her not being selected for Olympics has just stepped her game up. I don't think we would have seen this Beth Mead had she played at the Olympics. And in a way, I'm really happy that she missed out on the chance, because now we get to see like Beth Mead at 100%, and that is amazing to watch. Like, to watch her just score goals, have assists, just like create a havoc on the field. It's amazing. It's such a pleasure to watch such an amazing player just play her game. It's really nice.
Okay, I haven't been a avid watcher of the game, as you know, and most of our podcast listeners may also know that I am just a newcomer to this field. But has Beth Mead from the starting been so highly rated, so highly talented as a player, or is this season something sort of a special where she felt like she was left out of the England Olympic squad, as you said, and that sparked her, or maybe a change of coach, like we discussed in previous podcast as well. Jonas and Adeval coming into the squad, and his tactics are more inclined towards the pressing style of the game, higher pressing style of the game. So maybe that changed the mentality, or that sparked her game to be better. So what do you think is the main difference as to is it a mentality change, is it a coach change, or has she been highly rated from the starting?
Hmm. I think it's a little bit of everything, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Um, Beth Mead has always been a phenomenal player. Like, she's always been a very exciting player. She's always been extremely talented. She was amazing for Sunderland when she played for Sunderland. And she was amazing. She has been amazing for the England national team. And back when Phil Neville was the manager for England,
Hmm.
Beth Mead was pretty much a regular. But I think having that spot in the team constantly, and knowing that she would be picked, because obviously she is talented, but I think it did, I won't say it made her passive, but I think she got into a comfort zone. And I think having a coach change in both the national team as well as Arsenal at the same time, sort of, and also missing out on the Olympics, sort of pushed her, because now it's like they're back to level zero. So they have to start from scratch. Each player has to start from scratch. Each player has to prove their worth, their reputations. Even though they have created these reputations, that's not the only thing that these managers will be basing them off. So to because now she has to prove herself at both the national level and at the international level and at domestic level. I think it sort of pushes her more, and that's sort of a culmination of a lot of things. Her anger towards not being paid, her need to prove herself, her definitely Jonas Eidevall, who is a very attacking coach, and that is the kind of player she is. If anyone doesn't know about this, she used to play as a number 9. She was
Hmm.
the center forward for Sunderland. She played as a number 9 even when she was playing with the England youth teams. And
Hmm.
that sort of changed when Viviana Miedema came into Arsenal, because Beth Mead went from the number 9 to a winger. And so that was a change that we saw in Beth Mead at the time, where she, worked really hard and proved her worth, and started getting picked, started starting the matches under Joe Montemuro. But then, obviously, like I said, there did come a phase of comfort, I think. Um,
Hmm.
but she was still incredibly talented. She was still amazing as a player. It didn't lessen her play, or it didn't lessen her talent. It was just, she needed to evolve, and I think she evolved at the perfect time. I think a lot of players don't do that, and so
Hmm.
they enter a very bad phase in their life. But I think Beth Mead grabbed the chance with both her hands, and yeah, she's just evolved into this amazing player now, and I'd say she's world class.
Maybe this season might be her season, and maybe she might be one of the players that might be getting, in the shortlist
Contender
for
for the
the
Golden
Ballon
Boot.
d'Or, or no,
Oh, okay.
Golden Boot as well, but as well as something like a Ballon d'Or or those kind of awards that the shortlist that comes up. Maybe the next season when the list comes, maybe Beth Mead's name is there, because I'm a new watcher, as I have already discussed, and since I'm watching her this season only, she's looking so bloody brilliant and a fantastic player to watch. The way she presses, the way she attacks, and her assist, and the swagger she has on the field. I remember the last match, even in the Barcelona one, the one where we lost massively. And you were right about the Barcelona team. They are a ridiculous fucking team. Sorry for the F word, but they were really, really good that night. And I was really seeing the likes of maybe Xavi, Iniesta, and Sergio Busquets in the women's team, and the women's player playing that sort of stuff. But Beth Mead did, I watched a highlight or a clip where Beth Mead really pushed a Barcelona player on the field, and just shoulder pushed her way, like, get out of my way, I'm coming through. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to press the ball. I don't care how many goals you are winning with, but yeah, I'm going to go there and do my stuff. And yeah, I really like that sort of mentality and that sort of player. It looks like a certain fire is burning in her system, or
She is a feisty player. She's
yeah, yeah,
always been a very feisty player. I think if anyone has watched the Arsenal women will know that,
yeah.
because especially last season when she got that red card for when we were playing our match against Manchester United, the second leg of the WSL fixture, and she got a red card for having fouled a few too many times. Yeah, she's one of those players. She'll always take the fall for the team when needed. She'll always, you know, uh, she's very attacking, but she also knows her defense.
Mhm.
And as far as the Ballon d'Or is concerned, as you had mentioned, I think if she keeps this up throughout the season and throughout the upcoming Euros next year, I think she has a very good shot at being nominated for the Ballon d'Or. But at the same time, we have seen some disappointments this time for the Ballon d'Or list, but
Mhm.
hopefully Beth Mead won't be one of them next season.
And there is a mutual friend of ours, Adam Slater, and as we were discussing
Adam
about,
Salter.
sorry, Adam Salter, and as we were discussing about the yellow card stuff, he made an article that was quite funny, and quite a few people were, getting baited by it. Is because Jonas Endewald has the most yellow cards in the team, and he made a blog or something like that, or article where it read that Arsenal have been disqualified because of so many yellow cards for the manager, and we will be not playing any more Champions League matches. So that was a really funny to read, and many were going, "Is this real? Is this really happening?" So that really tells that the whole team and the manager is also really into this stuff and really aggressive. The team has gone on those type of stuff.
Yeah. First of all, whenever I see something of that sort where it says Arsenal have been disqualified for so and so, I always check who is writing it, because most of the time, if it's written by Adam Salter, you can rest assured it's a joke. So so it's always he writes really good satirical articles, and that's really nice. And yeah, Jonas, like I really like his passion, and I love that, he's so passionate about the team and about the game. But I just like him to calm down, because he's at 2 consecutive yellows right now. And if he gets another one, that rules him out for the 4th game. So I just like him to, just chill a little so that we don't have to face a match where we don't have our manager in the sidelines. So, yeah.
And make sure everyone go and follow Adam Salter at Adam Salter 4 on Twitter. He's a great guy who follows both the women and men's stuff, but mainly focusing on the women's side a bit more. And yeah, he writes an excellent stuff, and he's more of a friend for Ria as compared to mine. But yeah, he writes a great stuff, and he has a great voice once he came into the space, and he was speaking quite well, and he knows his stuff. So do give him a follow on Twitter at Adam Salter 4. So yeah, I made sure that we shout out great women, writers and podcasters and everything on our podcast. So they grow, we grow, they grow. So it's a mutual understanding. And let's talk about as we were talking about both Jonas and Beth Mead. Luckily, since we both were gone, they both got the Manager of the Month award and the Player of the Month award. So that was.
You make it sound like we were the bad omens.
Exactly. We were the bad omens, and that's why they were nominated and they won. And kudos to all the Arsenal fans that voted for the manager and the player as well. And don't get me wrong, they totally deserve both the awards because of how well, first of all, Arsenal women are playing in the WSL, and Beth Mead as well. She has been absolute, as we talked earlier as well. She has been a revelation. Those both awards were absolutely deserved. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Both the awards were absolutely deserved, and I think this season we have such a good team, and every single player is just on their A game this season, that sometimes it gets really tough as to which player to pick for these votes, because last month Beth Mead and Viv Miedema were both nominated. This month, Katie McCabe and Kim Little are both nominated. So it gets really, really tough to pick a player to vote for in these situations. So, but I'm so happy that we're playing brilliant football.
Okay, let's talk about some other players that received good awards this week. And first of all, congratulations to Manu. Manu or Manu, I don't know what.
Manuela Zinsberger,
Manu. And she received her #1 trophy for the Australia Player of the Year, apparently. So that's
Austria Player of the Year, yeah.
Yeah.
She plays for Austria.
Yeah, Austria. Sorry, my mistake if I spoke Australia. But yeah, Austria Player of the Year. That's a big thing for a goalkeeper, especially. And yeah, congratulations to her as well. Well deserved. And she has been absolutely brilliant in the goal as well. So her performances have been standout as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Manu, I think, is the most improved from last season. I know we spoke about how Beth Mead has evolved and how Beth Mead has stepped her game up. But if we look at the entire Arsenal team, I think Manu has been the most improved goalkeeper this season. Not goalkeeper, just as a player, she's been the most improved, I think. The change that we saw from last season, especially in the first few matches, I don't know if you had watched it, but there was our first match against Reading.
Hmm.
So we were leading, I think 6-0 or 5-0 at the time, and
Hmm.
there was an absolute free goal which was very much avoidable, and Manu was just a mess in front of the goal at the time. And to
Hmm.
watch her now just save on save on save, it's incredible to watch her growth and how much she has improved. It's
Hmm.
We are now seeing, like, honestly, I think Manu is up there with like the top 5 goalkeepers in the world
Hmm.
right now. She's not just performing for Arsenal. If you've watched any of the Austria um, World Cup qualifying matches, you'll have seen she has been phenomenal. She's been everywhere on the goal, and the way she like manages the backline. I know amongst the Arsenal women's fans, we always joke about how Manu loves to play center back or in the midfield
Hmm.
rather than as
Hmm.
a goalkeeper. But yeah, she's been the way she handles the backline, the way she manages her defenders, her the set pieces. It's been brilliant to watch her grow into this amazing player. And I think a lot of that has to do with last season when Lydia Williams came into the team.
Hmm.
um, her taking because Lydia is quite a senior goalkeeper, so
Hmm.
her taking in and sort of training day in day out with somebody who has that much of an experience, who has played for that many teams, I think that
Hmm.
helped her a lot. And yeah, we now see a brilliant goalkeeper, and I'm so happy that we get to have Manu Zinsberger with us.
Yeah, if you ask one of her literal fans that is absolutely in love with her and crazy about her, we both know her. It's Simona, and if we ask Simona who's the best player in the on the planet, she will obviously say Manu, and there is
Yeah.
no other answer for her right now. And we'll also when I put this on the video thing, I'll put her, one of the drawings, and make sure
Yeah.
to check her, Twitter out,
Workout.
because artwork out, and Twitter as well, because she does absolutely brilliant stuff. So hats off to Simona as well. You can find her at let me see what her Twitter is. You can follow Simona at Simona Bliff, Bleif, at on Twitter. So yeah, another fantastic friend of ours who does fantastic artwork regarding Arsenal women players. So yeah, make sure to give a follow as well. So yeah, you can tell us about rest of the players and how the other Arsenal women players are getting along in the international, matches and all.
Yeah, sure. So let's start off with Scotland, because
Hmm.
Scotland is one of the nations that I absolutely like, one of the teams that I absolutely love and love to
Hmm.
watch them play. So, as some of you might know or not know, Scotland wasn't able to qualify for the Euros that are happening next year, which was extremely shocking, because if you look at the Scotland squad, they have absolutely amazing players. They have players who play for the topmost teams in the topmost leagues, and for a team like theirs, they should be playing every single big tournament. But it was really shocking, and right now Scotland are topping their group. In the women's World Cup qualifying rounds. They're topping their group. They have, I not to discredit any of the other teams, but I do think that the toughest competition is Spain, because Spain, again, they are just flying at the moment right now. A lot of their players play for Barcelona. A lot of their players play for Real Madrid, and we just know that these players are like top quality players. But
Hmm.
Scotland haven't played with Spain yet, so that'll be a fun match to watch. The last
Hmm.
match they played was against Hungary.
Hmm.
Um, they scored. Scotland went 1-0 up, and then there was an equalizer in the second half, and then Scotland had an amazing 90th minute goal, which was like a nail biting finish in the truest sense. And the best part was our own Jenny Beattie was the one who provided the assist for the winning goal. So that was awesome. It was a Rachel Corsie goal, but it was assisted by Jenny Beattie, who obviously we just, she just crossed her 1 year landmark of having beaten cancer and having victory over cancer, breast cancer, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
What a fighter.
I think it was the breast cancer month as well.
Yeah,
the week.
It was a breast cancer awareness week, and that was it was so like it was such a full circle moment for her.
Absolutely.
And obviously our Lisa Evans, who has been loaned out to West Ham, she didn't start the match, but she did come on as a substitute, and she was involved in the play that led to the winning goal. Moving on to my favorite players team, Netherlands. The Netherlands.
Miedema,
they, yeah, Viv Miedema, my absolute hero. But yeah, Viv opened the book for goals for Netherlands that evening, because Netherlands won 8-0 against Cyprus, which was insane. Like I think the first two matches that the Netherlands played in the qualifying rounds, I think obviously the Netherlands now have a new coach, and so it was a little shaky, and all the Dutch fans, they were a little nervous, because we don't know how this coach would have fit in. And obviously Sarina Wiegman was such an amazing coach for the Netherlands. She took them to the World Cup. She took them to the final of the World Cup. She got them the Euros 2017. So it was just, I think it was not the best start for Mark Parsons to have come in and then not lost, but drawn the first match, which should have been an easy win, and then barely scraped through and won the second match. But yeah, the 8-0 victory against Cyprus, we saw the old Netherlands team back and the old way of their playing. And it was really nice. Our ex-player Jill Roach scored a hat trick, which was amazing as well.
I've been hearing Tim Stillman recently tweeted on his Twitter regarding this stuff only about Jill Road being in the form of her life for Wolfsburg, and what a fantastic player she is for them as well, because apparently when she was with us, she wasn't that good. Maybe she was highly rated.
It wasn't so much as she wasn't good. It was more of the kind of play that Joe Montemuro had. She wasn't fit for it. Again, Jill Road is very attacking. She loves taking the ball up, and she loves, creating these plays, or being, she's one of those players who will be at the right place at the right time. So she was sort of that sort of a player. And obviously Joe Montemuro had a very different style of play, and she wasn't starting regularly. And obviously she's starting pretty much every single match for Wolfsburg. Now she's a very integral part of the team at the moment. So I think, there were a few issues with the style of play that Joe Montemuro had and the kind of player that she was. She was still quality. Whenever she would be on the pitch, she would still create, these magical moments. But something was just not fitting right. I personally, I would have liked to see her play under Jonas, but obviously that can't happen. And Wolfsburg obviously really wanted her, because she was still under contract with Arsenal, and they bought her off of Arsenal, which is very, very rare in the women's game. So yeah, she's absolutely brilliant. And when you do get that regular time, when you have a team that backs you, when you have a manager that has so much faith in you, I think your game just changes and goes to the next level. So yeah, it's really amazing to watch her play now. And obviously DVD as well, she scored. She's an ex-Arsenal player, pretty much a legend actually amongst the Arsenal women.
Yeah, we discussed a bit about DVD in our previous podcast as well. Maybe going forward, we'll discuss more about her impact and how she was for, Arsenal women's team and her stature at the club in the first podcast. So yeah. But she is absolutely loved in the community and
amongst the fans. We love her. She's amazing.
Right.
Even as a player, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Then moving on quickly
Mm.
to the Republic of Ireland and Sweden
Mm.
match. Now, Sweden are an extremely, extremely good team. Like,
Mm.
they are one of the topmost teams in the world. And, you know, this Olympics, we saw how good the Swedish team has become.
Mm.
They were obviously the finalists and they were actually the favorites for winning the tournament.
Mhm.
However, Canada very surprisingly took the gold away. And Sweden were the silver medalists. However, this was a very interesting match to watch because, again, with all due respect to the Republic of Ireland team, Sweden
Mm.
are a better team. They just have more. They just have more infrastructure. They just have a better quality of just their federation and association. Just in terms of that, they have had more support than the
Mm.
Irish team has. But what was the most surprising was that the Irish team. I mean, in this fixture, Sweden were the
Mm.
favorites. Like, we all knew that Sweden were going to take away the
Mm.
win. But the
Mm.
fact that Ireland kept them quiet with just one goal,
Mm.
was amazing to watch. You know,
Mm.
and even that goal that happened, it was, I think, an own goal from Louise Quinn, who again is an ex-Arsenal player, now
Mm.
currently captains the Birmingham team. But yeah, it was a very freak goal sort of a situation. And even after that, to watch Ireland not give up and just reorganize themselves and just get back into the game and
Mm.
defend for the rest of the game, it was amazing. It was very one-sided, I will say, but at the end of the day, Ireland did amazing. Katie McCabe was on fire, absolutely. She's the captain of the team, and she always shows up, and it was
Mm.
amazing to watch her. Then another Irish team played, obviously, with against England. We did discuss the win. I mean, the contribution of Beth Mead in that game, but the English team won 4-0, and all four goals came
Mm.
in within that 15-minute bracket of the game after Beth Mead and Beth England came onto the field. I think um, I if anyone follows me on Twitter, they'll know that I was pretty disappointed with the kind of play that Ellen White was having. But to be very honest with you, I was very disappointed with the game that Nikita Paris was having as well. She did not show up whatsoever. It was so disappointing to watch her. Just um, it was. I guess it was just not her day, but I don't know. I've seen her play better for England. I've seen her play better just in general, and it was just not her day. Lauren Hemp, before Beth Mead came onto the field, Lauren Hemp was probably the best player on the field, and she had some amazing crosses into the box, which should have gone in, which had Beth Mead probably been there, she would have scored them, or had Beth England been there, she would have scored them. But
Mm.
um, Ellen White and Nikita Paris, they were just not good enough, and it was a little disappointing to watch that. Anyway, they won 4-0 at the end of the day. That was still a good victory. Um, Moving on to the next game, that's Switzerland and Romania. And I move on to this game because obviously our Leah Valti plays for Switzerland, and
Mm.
so does Noel Maritz.
Mm.
And this match I actually could not watch, so I don't have that much input. But I know that um, neither of our players scored the goals, but they still won 2-0. And Switzerland are proving to be a really good team. We will see them play their first major tournament next year in the Euros, which is exciting. They have some really good players, so that'll be exciting. The shocking fixture, I think, was the Norway-Poland fixture last week, which ended in a draw, nil-all draw. And I say shocking because Norway have some amazing players, and I feel like they constantly underperform with the kind of team and the kind of players they have. They have the likes of Ingrid Engen, Guro Reiten, Frida Manum, and when you have players who are that good and who play for their clubs week in week out and create magic for their clubs week in week out, I think that you should do better as a national team. Like, I get that the national team does not get as much time as club teams do, and they don't have that much time to gel and stuff, but still these players deserve better. I think there is something up with the management, and something needs to change because they have been a little disappointing and they shouldn't be this disappointing. And and also Austria had a game last week which ended up in a goals galore. It ended up, I think, 5-0. And Manu, again, she was amazing on goal, and unfortunately Vicky Schneiderbeck had to pull out of the national team camp because of a muscle injury. She's just come back from injury, so it makes sense. She just played her first match. It makes sense to have some relapses in the recovery, but nothing major, so no stress. But yeah, Vicky Schneiderbeck had to unfortunately pull out, but that match was amazing as well. So I think that's pretty much it for the international break. I think, we've covered it all.
So I'm hearing good positive things about all the Arsenal players and ex-Arsenal players as well, doing fantastic job internationally. So that means hopefully this time around, whenever we play Barcelona next, we can beat them, hopefully. But that's my only thing. And the great news is that Arsenal versus Barcelona, the Champions League game, will be happening at the Emirates Stadiums. So that will be that is one of the best things that we have heard from the Arsenal, and maybe the Arsenal supporters are I have seen in the group as well. Maybe you can tell your reaction to that news. I hope that is a great news for the fans and the supporters who can at least watch Arsenal team playing some kind of European football this season.
Okay, so I have mixed feelings about this fixture happening at the Emirates. And the reason being is, it happening at the Emirates is a great advertisement for women's football in general and Arsenal women in specific. It's really good advertisement, and it's really good. It's a really good moment to showcase, to the world. The reason I'm a little hesitant and I'm not as excited about is that Barcelona are a team that thrive in space. They want this space. They want to stretch you out. They want you to make mistakes. They want to, because they have pace. They have incredible, like if you watch the last Arsenal Barcelona game, every time Arsenal had the ball at their feet, every single time, each player was surrounded by like 4 Barcelona players. How they did that was incredible. Like they could be anywhere on the pitch. As soon as an Arsenal player has the ball, there are 4 players surrounding the Arsenal player. So they so they thrive on that on the space. And obviously we know that the Emirates pitch is much bigger than the Meadow Park pitch. So if we can, figure out how to work that space, how to exploit Barcelona, brilliant, great. I'm all for it. And it should happen at the Emirates, because there is no moment better than this to have an Arsenal Champions League game at the Emirates.
Yeah.
But I'm just afraid that shouldn't be the reason why we can't step up our game. Like that's the only thing. But
because so far for the Arsenal men's side, since Mikel Arteta is in charge and we have a relatively inexperienced team, and the support has been incredible from the home fans. I mean, this kind of support, this kind of backing, this kind of loudness, and that kind of feeling I haven't seen forever since I have started watching. Maybe I haven't heard the crowd be so loud and be so supportive, or of the football, even though we aren't playing that good of a football. But I guess if enough Arsenal supporters show up for the women's game, and hopefully they do, because this is the Arsenal women players will and the Arsenal women's team will need all of their support. So hopefully the stadium is like 40-50,000 at least. Fans are showing up, and that alone itself would be a big deal and would help Arsenal players even believe in themselves that they can do it. And hopefully Jonas this time around has learned his lessons. As I also, in our preview, I also talked about maybe backing off and playing a little defensive style of football may work against such a one of the best sides, women's sides in the world. So hopefully Jonas takes that.
Yeah, and we saw that in the second fixture that Barcelona played against Koge. I think that's how they say it. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, but that's what we saw. They played a 5-4-1 formation, and Barcelona were kept quiet at 2-0, and those they kept attacking, and most of the football was happening on the other side of the pitch, but even then they were like kept quiet. But also at the same time, they didn't have Alexia that day because she was injured. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see whether Jonas continues with his attacking football, whether he keeps his faith on that, or if he takes a more defensive approach like Koga did. Because 5-4-1, it is a very difficult formation to break through, and it is a difficult formation to score goals in. We saw that even with Arsenal last season when West Ham went 5-4-1 in the away fixture, I believe. And Arsenal had the toughest time scoring. It took us blood and sweat to, have to score the goals. So it'll be interesting to see if Jonas takes a more defensive approach, or if he keeps his faith on his attacking style of football.
And as far as Alexia is concerned, she was absolutely brilliant against Arsenal. I mean, when I haven't watched her playing for, any Barcelona or the national team as well. So this was my first time watching her play, and she was absolutely brilliant. And she was as close as they come to maybe someone like Messi or Ronaldo in the men's game. She was that good of a player in the,
That's such an interesting comment to make, because she's a number 10 and not a forward. Yeah. she plays as a midfielder. But that's the kind of player she is. She can score from absolutely anywhere on the pitch. And, we saw that in the Champions League last season, and we saw that in the International Championship, which happened before the Spanish League started. And we are seeing this now within the league as well as at the Champions League. Yeah.
And the only thing is that the way to counter such a good player is to exactly replicate, or maybe close enough to replicate, is how teams then go about handling someone like a Messi or a Ronaldo or a Neymar, or that kind of level of a player, is continuously foul her, make be a bit more physical on that kind of stuff. Maybe that could be some kind of a game plan, or maybe cover her more so that the passing lanes are covered, something like that. Maybe Jonas can come up with a better plan as to how to deal with her effectively and nullify her game. So that would be my main focus going into the Barcelona game. Shut down Alexia. And I know that there are many other threats, but that would be my main focus point as to.
But I'll tell you this, that if we try to block down Alexia, that might backfire. The reason being, so let's take the Chelsea Arsenal match, right? And we saw that Viv was being blocked consistently. And the thing is, with players like Alexia and Viv, they are inherently playmaking players, right? They just happen to score goals, but essentially they are playmaking players. And with players like that, like, sure, you can have you can foul them, and you can stop them from getting away with the ball, but if you watch Barcelona play, their passing accuracy is excellent. Like literally anytime they were passing the ball, there was a player there to collect it. How they did that, it was insane. Like it's like they had magnets on their boots or something, right? And so that's the thing. Even if we block down Alexia from making those runs or scoring those goals or entering the box, we still have Caro to, counter. We still have, and by that time, I'm expecting Jennifer Hermoso will be completely, fully fit. We have not even seen her.
That was an interesting segment on what you told about me about Alexia and her playmaking abilities. And I totally agree with you that if we try to stop her using, blocking her off, she will find other ways, and the Barcelona team will find other ways to score. So hopefully the Arsenal team and Jonas comes up with some kind of plan to stop her, or even make a draw, or somehow we will be able to win with the help of fans and supporters at the Emirates stadiums. But enough of that. Let's talk about the FA Cup semi-finals. That is Arsenal versus Brighton. What can you tell us about the Brighton team, and how has their season been so far in the WSL and the FA Cup run so far?
Yeah, so the Brighton team I actually rate really highly. They they are probably one of the most improved teams. Obviously, their manager, Hope Powell, is doing really well with them. And she used to be the England manager as well at a point in time. And one of the things I love about the Brighton team is how cohesive their play is. Like, and when I say that, I mean how well connected each player is. Like each player knows their role within the team, and each player, has a very defined
instructions role and tactics.
And they stick to that, and it works. So that's really interesting. They have some really good players. They have, I think, their best player in the team currently is Inessa Kagman, who plays for the Dutch national team.
What position she plays at?
She plays as midfielder.
Okay.
And she's one of those players that you are too afraid to take out of your fantasy league team because she's just that good. So she's a brilliant player. And another player that is really shining through this season is Maya Letizier. She's a defender, and she has been amazing for the team as well. Obviously, then there is Danique Kirkdijk. Again, she's a Dutch international. She's a defender as well. Really good player. Megan Walsh, their goalkeeper, brilliant. They have a strong forward line as well. They have a really good team, and I think they have, they're a very strong mid-table team. They're slowly crawling upwards, and they're making, positive changes and positive movements within the club and the team. However, here's the thing with Brighton, you never know, because last season Chelsea lost against Brighton. So with Brighton, you just never know when they are going to bring their 100% on the pitch. And the day that they do bring their 100% on the pitch, they are a very, very tough team to beat. So
what kind of football they exactly play? Do they play possession based? Do they play defensive based? Or do they play possession kind of football?
I would say they are very much. I wouldn't say they play defensive. However, against big teams, like against the top four, obviously every team sort of goes into a defensive movement because that's honestly one of the wisest things to do. But they don't. They definitely. Otherwise, they aren't a very defensive team. They like attacking. They like moving the ball forwards. They like pushing the back line up as much as they can. They love forcing mistakes. They love making space for Inessa Kagman. She loves to score goals. And they love making space for her. And very much like we see with Katie McCabe and Noelle Maritz running up and down the wings when they play as wing backs. They really enjoy doing that as well. But to be fair, the 4 teams that were there for the semi-final draw, I think we made the most favorable draw. I think having, either Chelsea or even the City's form hasn't been the best right now, but even then having City or Chelsea would, after an international break, would be a massive game for us. I'm glad we've got Brighton. But at the same time, like I said, it's difficult to say with them because when they bring their 100%, they are a very tough team to beat. But I am expecting us to come out victorious from this.
Yeah. So what formation they usually play with?
4-3-3. They go in for 4-3-3.
Okay. And the last question is, do you know the last 5 results that Arsenal have had against Brighton by any chance?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to tell you. I know that they won both fixtures last season, but I can't tell you whether... Oh, and also Brighton have gotten one of our ex-Arsenal players, Daniel Carter, this season, who is an exceptional forward as well. Unfortunately, her time at Arsenal was short-lived because she had 2 back-to-back ACL injuries. But when she was in form, she was absolutely brilliant for Arsenal. And we'll if she starts against us, she's going to be one to watch out as well. But unfortunately, I'm not aware of our record against them the past 5. But I do know we won both our fixtures last season.
So that's good news that previously we have won both of those fixtures against Brighton, even though they are, as you are saying, they are a very competitive team, and it will be an interesting matchup, hopefully better than the Tottenham one. But I'm also expecting the Arsenal team to win this match. So before we predict our scores, let's go with the predicted lineup for Arsenal. What's your formation and what are your picks?
Okay, not going based on the team we are playing against, just going by the stature of the game, because it's a semi-final. I will say we'll probably play Steph Catley, Lotte Wubben-Moy, Leah Williamson, Noelle Maritz. Then in the midfield, I think we'll see Frida Manum, Leah Walty, and Jordan Nobbs. Oh, no, sorry. I'm so sorry. The reason I left out Kim Little from the midfield is because I was thinking about international games because they're going to come back from international week. And then I just realized that Kim Little retired. So no, not Kim. I mean, I don't think he'll be resting Kim then. So I think it's going to be Leah Walty, Kim Little, and Frida Manum in the midfield. And we'll see, hopefully we'll see Katie McCabe, Viv Miedema, and Beth Mead starting, but I also see Tobin Heath starting. We've just got such an excellent team. It's difficult to choose from.
But apparently we have also you have also missed Mana Iwabuchi as well. So she is also there.
The reason I actually didn't pick her is because if you've noticed in the past few games, Mana. So like Jonas says, the thing is with this with Jonas, he is very much he sticks to the starting 11 and the finishing 11, and I think he prefers to watch Mana in the finishing 11. I think she brings some innovation to the game after she has been substituted in. He really enjoys to use her as a finisher, and I think that's why I have skipped out on Mana, because he hasn't started her consistently.
No, no, I was talking that the type of options that we have available, that we have so many options. So yeah, it's quite ridiculous. But yeah, let's talk about now the end it with the the predicted score for this. What are you going with? And this time we are also going with another 50 rupees bet, both of us. Let's see what happens.
We keep losing all these bets.
That's right. That's why we should make them often, huh?
No, I think 4-0. Arsenal, obviously. 4-0.
Okay, Arsenal 4-0. I'm also going with a high score line. Arsenal 5, Brighton 0. So that's my prediction. So only one goal more, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah,
somehow 4-0 feels less and 5-0 feels like a lot, but
yeah.
But yeah.
But it's good to see that we are having a good time with Arsenal not conceding a goal, and hopefully we don't concede, because last time we predicted not conceding, Tottenham literally scored the first goal. So hopefully we don't do that this time. It was a heart attack for most of our supporters seeing Tottenham score. So hopefully we can keep a clean sheet.
Yeah.
So that was our podcast, and you guys can, follow us on Twitter. You can follow Ria at Ria Rai Chaudhary on Twitter. She continuously talks about women's football and her, emotional life and her work and her cakes. And yeah, you can order your free cake right now. Go her Twitter, and she will absolutely.
You're going to shut my shop one day.
She will absolutely give you one. But yeah, do follow her. She is one of the best humans you can find on Twitter. And yeah,
that's sweet.
Go and go follow her on Twitter, and you can follow me guys on Twitter as well at Dushyant AFC. So this podcast will be uploaded on YouTube as well, on the channel Let's Talk Arsenal, hopefully by tomorrow. And yeah, this will be going on Spotify. Hopefully you guys are on Spotify and are seeing this podcast. So this is our first podcast on the Spotify app, and hopefully you guys are liking this stuff. And we'll be also doing the regular Arsenal stuff, and hopefully uploading it on the podcast regularly, and the Arsenal Women's podcast as well. So thank you, Ria, for coming to the podcast. It's been a pleasure. It's been a long time. Hopefully we can do it often now. We both are back, and hopefully we keep on continuing seeing Arsenal win.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Come on, you Gunners. Peace.